Welcome to Village in Motion this Thursday, February the 20th. I'm Clint Lambert, and it's my pleasure to be talking with Jeff McKay this morning. As I mentioned earlier, he's the supervisor of, the chairman of the Board of Supervisors of Fairfax County. And Jeff was just recently elected in January, correct, Jeff?
November.
November.
Clint, yeah.
Okay, you started serving
in January.
In January. But you'd been on the Board of Supervisors for a number of years, right?
12 years, okay. 3 terms as lead district supervisor, which of course is the area that Greenspring is in. So the difference between being a district supervisor and chairman is you go from representing 120,000 people right here to now representing nearly 1.2 million in the entire county.
Oh, okay.
And so that's been a major change since the last time I was here.
Well, what's been nice, you've been here a couple times every year.
I have. Actually, my history with Greenspring, of course, goes all the way back, believe it or not, to 1996.
Wow.
When I was a land use aide working in the then lead district supervisor's office on this land use case that was going to do something revolutionary, which is build this phenomenal community that we have now. And so I can literally say I've been involved with this community now for 24 good years.
Yeah, wonderful. And you had a very close contact here for a number of years in the form of your sister.
Yeah, she worked here for a number of years, really enjoyed it, loved the people here. Her husband is stationed in Palo Alto, California right now, and hopes to come back to this area next year. She, like me, spent her entire life born and raised in Fairfax County. This is literally the first time she's been away from home. And so a couple of years stint in California. Hopefully she comes back here to stay.
Yeah. Well, Jessica did such wonderful things here. Really advertised us and advertised Erickson Living in Greenspring phenomenally. So we missed her.
Well, I will pass that along. She loved it here. And as I said, most importantly, love the people, because that's really what keeps you coming back.
Right. Very good. We're glad she's going to come back and visit.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. All right, very good. Question I've always wanted to ask the chairman of the board: what are you doing for us?
That's a good question. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this job if every day I didn't feel like I was doing something for the people of Fairfax County. The board, of course, has very broad, important responsibilities. Number one thing, of course, is passing an annual balanced budget every year that sets out all of our priorities in the county. And so many people who live in Fairfax touch the work of the board every day without knowing it. If you walk into a library, walk into a rec center, walk down a sidewalk, turn on your water and it comes out in the morning. Those are all responsibilities of the board, everything from public works to recreation to social engagement to funding the most important thing we do in Fairfax County, which is our public school system. Right. And so we, of course, play a major role in the funding, not necessarily the governance of that. And then we also, oversee the comprehensive plan, land use and zoning. So we control the development process in the county with a lot of citizen engagement. It's a really important responsibility of a board member. And also, part of that is bringing economic development opportunities to the county. Jobs, quality redevelopment, economic growth that helps our budget, helps pay for the phenomenal services that we provide to folks. And so you can think of your supervisor as really that person you call when you have a pothole on the street, your water doesn't work right, all the way up to, what's that big development down the street, or how can we address and solve climate change here in Fairfax County. I mean, to issues that big really cross our desk. And so we're pretty A to Z.
Wow. Well, speaking of that, Fairfax County is pretty A to Z, right? All the way around. I mean, and one of the largest counties around, right?
It is the largest jurisdiction in the Commonwealth of Virginia, largest in our region, larger than 8 states.
Wow.
And a lot of people really forget that. At 1.2 million people, it is an enormous county. And I can tell you in this new job, I have appreciation for, just how big it is geographically, too. I mean, I can have a day now where I'm in Herndon, Reston, McLean, Falls Church, Lorton, back here in Springfield and Kingstown, all in one day.
Wow.
And so a lot of my time is spent, going from one part of the county to another. And it's important for the chairman to do that, to understand all the differences that we have in the county and understand that those differences are really our strength. And certain areas of the county are a way that they are. For a lot of different reasons. And I like to think of our county as a collection of areas, of cultures, of unique communities that really weave together in this larger fabric of what I call One Fairfax, which is, you know, a really great, cohesive, welcoming community, very culturally diverse, very economically diverse. And really, I think, is one of the reasons why we're such a huge economic success, not just for the Commonwealth of Virginia, but the story of Fairfax County's economic success is known across this country. It's something we can be proud of.
Very, very good. Speaking from an economic standpoint, is Amazon going to affect us?
Amazon will affect us. I think there's some good, more good than bad. But you know, we always look at things as the complete picture. So they're bringing a Virginia Tech educational opportunity to our region that we never had before. Most people don't realize, I mean, I'm not the most technological person, but it's amazing to me that in this region, we have nearly 100,000 unfilled technology jobs simply because people don't have the talent to fill those jobs. And so bringing this Virginia Tech Center to pair people who are underemployed or unemployed with the skill sets they need to fill these jobs is a really important part of what Amazon is bringing to this area. The one thing we have to keep our eye on, obviously traffic, but where they're building it is perfect because it's on a rail line, it's in a transit station, it's an area where there's a lot of density already, which is where you want to put something like that, not in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And then secondly, we've got to keep our eye on housing costs. And one of the things that I'm working on with our board is being much, much more robust in the construction of affordable housing in the county, because that's really a crunch for people. And people don't think of affordable housing holistically like I do. And when I think of affordable housing, I think of climate change. I think of transportation gridlock. If we keep forcing people further and further away from where they work, it has health effects, it has environmental effects, it has stress effects, it has transportation effects. And so how we plan, how we build affordable housing close to where jobs are, if anything, Amazon has helped us, you know, double down on our efforts to do that.
Great, very, very good. Speaking of housing and those types of things and the board, one of the things we experience here at Green Spring is this tremendous review process when we want to do something. What can be done about that?
So I, as lead district supervisor, of course, passed a lot of land use cases involving Green Spring, modifications, changes. I've worked closely here with the management to try to streamline the process, get them through the process as quickly as possible. I keep reminding our county staff that it's in the county's interest to streamline that process because financially, it's obviously in our interest from a tax-based standpoint, but also a quality of life standpoint and a productivity standpoint. I mean, we process literally tens of thousands of permits every year. And so some get hung up, some unfortunately don't turn out the way people would have liked. So one of the jobs of supervisors is to really sit down with those communities and help streamline that process. We did it here. Obviously, land use takes a lot longer than people think. You know, I've never been, you know, it amazes me always when we pass a land use case, people expect then we pass that on Tuesday. On Wednesday morning, the contractors are going to show up, and you know, we're very careful to make sure that not only when we build new things in the county do we build them in an environmentally sensitive way, because we have, you know, some climate issues to deal with, some drainage issues always come up, parking issues always come up, but also we take very seriously our role as public safety agents. So when we build a building, we must ensure and tell the public that building is safe. And that's why building codes and zoning ordinances and things like that are important. There are ways to streamline them. That's something I'm going to take on as chairman. But the fundamentals of why we do it is really important to protect public safety, protect our environment, make sure our buildings are sustainable, and have the proper permits so that people can walk in them with confidence. Because
with the permits, it seems like it takes forever for us to get a permit to start doing something.
It does, and you know, part of that here, this is a unique community. So I have a couple communities in the county. Nearby, people know of Kingstown. Kingstown is comparable in a way because Kingstown's in this unique P district, which means it's a planned large community. And so it's not piecemeal. And so every time you do something there, there's a much larger process you have to go through to make sure that ultimately that community is in harmony with the original vision and comprehensive plan that you had, and all those pieces work together. And Green Spring's a micro version of that, because we had this large campus that was approved. And we want to make sure that we, going through our land use process, protect many of the things that make Green Spring great. I know when we went through the last process, I was the one pushing the county hard to get moving, because I knew that a lot of the construction that was taking place were for amenities that residents here wanted.
Exactly.
I mean, this wasn't like just building new units or doing something voluntarily. This was something that Green Spring was doing in response to resident input about amenities that people here thought would improve their quality of life. And so in cases like that, we have to hit the gas pedal and get the county to act more expeditiously.
Yes. Please continue to do
Yeah,
that.
I will. It's sometimes turning around the Titanic, but I'm up for it. This is a challenge that I've taken on, and I will get success at.
You mentioned lead districts a couple of times.
Yeah.
Who's covering lead district now?
So the new lead district supervisor is Rodney Lusk.
Okay.
He's a good friend of mine. He actually is retired from the county to run for supervisor, which makes me feel young, at least for a moment. But he spent a career working on human services issues on the Route 1 corridor originally, and then spent a good chunk of his career. He had worked for a member of the Board of Supervisors for a few years, now Congressman Connolly. And then he spent a lot of years working at the county's Economic Development Authority. And one of the reasons he ran, and one of the reasons why I'm happy he's the supervisor, is to try to bring economic vitality, particularly to the Route 1 corridor. And so when I was supervisor, we made a lot of progress happen in Springfield. You know, when I took over, the mall was closed. There were a lot of boarded up, battered buildings, and not a lot of economic activity. And the Springfield of today, of course, far different than the Springfield of 12 years ago. And I have high hopes that that's what we will be saying about the Route 1 corridor in Fairfax County. And so he has a specific focus on bringing technology, employers, and jobs to the Route 1 corridor. And one thing about the Route 1 corridor for your viewers that a lot of people don't know, the largest employer in Fairfax County is Fort Belvoir. And most people don't think about it. You know, it's twice the size of the Pentagon. And it's served by Route 1, and it's just a few miles from multiple metro stations.
5 miles from here.
Exactly. And so it is the economic engine of South County. And because of where it is, presents for us such a huge opportunity on the Route 1 corridor to do redevelopment in a smart way that builds on the success that is Fort Belvoir. And so that's part of Rodney's vision, and he's now in this new position for 7 weeks, learning the ropes and learning how this job is 24/7, 365. But he seems to really be enjoying it. I think he'll do well.
Good, very good. What are your actual goals for this year?
So I have a number of goals. One of them is, we were talking before, earlier, before the show started, about the difficulty in employers finding employees in this area, very low unemployment rate. So one of my goals is to improve benefits and morale for our own county employees. Our services are great in part because of the people who provide them. So we're looking at some things like increasing family and medical leave. People who work nowadays are looking for different things. It's not just salary. So internally, looking to improve county morale. Externally, we talked a moment ago about affordable housing. We have several thousand units of new affordable housing in the pipeline, but we know that we have about 15,000 affordable housing units that are needed just in Fairfax County over the next, say, 10 years. And so my goal is to make sure we get more than 5,000 units built in the 4 years that I'm chairman, which seems like a lot, but we're going to get there. Secondly, I think the crisis of our time is climate change. And the county is doing a lot of things and heading in the right direction, leading by example. We just procured the largest solar power agreement in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia in Fairfax County to put solar panels on hundreds of our school buildings and county buildings to reduce our energy dependence, but also, to cut greenhouse gases and set an example. We are going through a county environmental resiliency plan review right now to build a resiliency plan for the whole county. We have new financing opportunities to take people who own older commercial and residential buildings and modernize them and make them more environmentally friendly. So we're looking at incentives to really do a lot of things with the environment, stormwater. Obviously, the weather we've been having is abnormal. We've had major storm damage, so increasing our investment in stormwater controls. Those are some of the environmental things that are absolutely on my agenda as we move forward. And then lastly, and this one is personally important to me because we have this One Fairfax initiative in the county. And what that really is to say every decision that the county makes, we have to look through an equity lens and make sure that we are propping up all corners of the county, giving economic opportunity to all of our residents, regardless of their ability, their income, where they come from. And it's really important to me that we go from that resolution at a high level to making sure that we're implementing that as a policy. And what I mean by that is when the board decides something very simple like where you want to put a bus stop, we have to be thinking through an equity lens. Where you put a bus stop could determine the doors of opportunity for some people. And so just being intentional about thinking about that. We're very successful in the county because we're a welcoming and inclusive community, and we really need to double down on that, especially with some of the conversation at the national level that seems to be so divisive, regardless of one's politics. We're in a divisive political world, and we need to embrace inclusivity and diversity here in the county.
Sounds great. You mentioned schools earlier. I'm finally really interested in schools in Fairfax. Kind of have a grandson who's in first grade.
That'll get you interested. Yeah, there you go.
In first grade. And the schools seem to be crowded. And these thousands of students that go to the different schools at one school. I mean, what's going to happen with all that?
So there's a few things. I mean, you know, so when I was a student in Fairfax County Public Schools a long time ago, we had trailers too. And so, you know, part of it is cyclical. Part of it is you could have very large spikes of population growth in one school and then be under capacity in a school right next door. And so one of the things, our board doesn't do this, the school board does, but this new school board, because we now have a new school board as of January too, I think are going to tackle boundary adjustments because it's been a long time since we've done that in the county. They're politically divisive, I get that, but while we have some schools with trailers, we also have a lot of schools that are under capacity, and there's been a reluctance to redraw boundaries for a lot of political reasons. So we have to address boundaries. The other thing is the school system, the school board makes a lot of decisions about curriculum that drive kids out of their boundary school and to a particular school for a special program. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does cause crowding in some schools and undercapacity in others. So I think they need to look at that policy. And then lastly, we need to put more capital money into the school CIP budget, and that's something I'm going to be working on. What we always have to balance is we're AAA bond rated jurisdiction, which means we always have to be cognizant of what our debt load is, and then our ability to service that debt every year in our annual budget. And so we're very particular about that. The county is very well financially governed, and we don't want to upset our AAA bond rating. That being said, I'm going to push the envelope a little bit on this because we are behind on school construction, and I think there's room for us to put more money in that in the years ahead.
Good. As a geriatric, and most of us here are, what's the county doing for us? I mean, we're truly not taxpayers as such. I mean, Green Spring pays exorbitant taxes because of the land. The taxes just increased about 5 years ago on Green Spring. But what's going on for us?
Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, so we have, one of the things that many of our seniors face, and it's not so much a challenge here as it is outside of Green Spring, but isolation. And so we've put a lot of money into senior centers. We've enhanced fast tran bus service to provide transportation for people who no longer have transportation to try to deal with some of the isolation issues because it is a very serious health concern for seniors, and you know, lack of social interaction causes a lot of other medical challenges, and so we've put a lot of effort and a lot of money into those programs for seniors. I think at a high level, you know, Fairfax County is the safest jurisdiction of its size in the United States of America.
Well, that's wonderful.
So public safety, of course, is really, really important.
Yes.
And our public safety folks, particularly our police department and our sheriff's office, have put a lot of money into outreach to our senior community to make sure that they're not victims of fraud. Unfortunately, seniors are disproportionately, targeted by telemarketers, by people who call and sound legitimate and just trying to take money.
All of us complain about that all the time.
It's a terrible thing, and so we are addressing that, with our public safety officials head on, getting the word out, providing training and resources to senior population, and telling people, never to engage with those folks. And so we're doing that is one of the things we're doing for seniors. And then with our fire and rescue department, we have the fastest response time of anyone in the region. And so we've been putting more money into sophisticated EMS equipment. This is difference between life and death for some people. And some people who have chronic medical issues or seniors, major decision about where they live is how good is their emergency services. And so the second highest thing in our budget outside of schools is public safety. And maintaining a safe community, maintaining a responsive emergency medical services professionals are really important things to our senior population.
Oh, very good. Because we have a crisis response team that goes throughout the country, in fact, throughout the world.
We do.
In response to crisis, right?
Yeah, our urban search and rescue team, Virginia Task Force 1, made up of our people who volunteer in our fire and rescue department, is federally funded. But whenever there's a disaster and they're called up, they're like a reserve unit. When they're called up, they serve. And the benefit to us here is it's entirely federally funded. And God help us if there was ever a major disaster here in Fairfax County. We have the most talented, sophisticated team in the United States of America housed here that would also be of service to us. And when they're not doing urban search and rescue activities, these are the folks on the front lines in our fire and rescue department. And so it makes me really proud as a county resident when I look at the national news and see a natural disaster and I see somebody walk by with a Fairfax County logo on it, because it just shows you the humanity and really the ethics of a community like us to help our neighbors in need, not just domestically, but anywhere in the world where there's a crisis. So we're really proud of that.
That's great. Fire departments. Our fire department is labeled volunteer fire department. Does that mean they survive just off of our donations, or are they surviving off of county funds? What's the story with that?
So we have a mixed service delivery model in the county, and so we have a lot of respect for folks who volunteer. Our volunteer stations are staffed by paid professionals and volunteers. And so even though Green Spring is served by the Springfield Volunteer Fire Station, a lot of personnel at the Springfield Volunteer Fire Station are paid professional personnel, and they're mixed in with some volunteer staff. And so the volunteers play an important role, but the vast majority of our fire and rescue personnel are paid professionals. And we maintain the volunteer system because the volunteer system owns a lot of important things, like the station. So they own the building at Springfield, and they do a lot of great things in the community. They do survive based on the community's donations, and that's how they pay for a lot of their expenses. They buy some of their own apparatus equipment, so some of the fire and rescue vehicles that come into Green Spring have been bought and paid for by citizen donations through the volunteer program.
And I understand there's a color code in regards to that.
There is a color code, and I emphasize this always to the public, because our system of paid professional paramedics and firefighters can stand on its own. So people sometimes get concerned about a volunteer system. If somebody doesn't show up, are my call going to be answered? We staff fully. And what happens with volunteer system is they help supplement a full staffing model that we already have. And so there's never a time where there's not the right boots on the ground, literally, to respond to any call that comes in. And they work together really well. I mean, it's pretty seamless between the volunteers and the paid professionals.
Well, we certainly appreciate them here, and we see them quite often on a daily basis here with their rescue and your paramedics. It's
Right.
wonderful.
Yeah, they
level.
do an outstanding job, and I wake up every morning proud of them because I know every day they're out there literally saving people's lives
Exactly.
with advanced medical training, and you know, we have more medical calls for service than we do
Yes.
traditional fire calls for service by a long way. And so we've really put a lot of emphasis on advanced life support systems and EMS response time in the county, and it literally saves lives every day.
Is it a state regulation or is it a county regulation for both an ambulance and a fire truck to go out at the same time on a call?
It's mostly a county regulation. I mean, we like to make sure we have proper staffing
Right.
because you know, I've spent some time in the 911 call center listening to some of the call volume, and you know, we're responding to, you know, well over 1,000 calls a day.
Wow.
And you know, sometimes they're very descriptive. You know
Right.
exactly what you're going into. Sometimes when you get there, it's something entirely different. And so one of the reasons sometimes we run multiple units is not just for the safety of the personnel, but also to be able to have people immediately there if the call has turned into something far more grave or
Right.
concerning when they get there. The worst thing that could happen to us is we arrive on a scene and then have to call in for more
Right.
support. We like to bring the support to begin with and make sure we have the talent and personnel there to deal with any concern that comes in. Doesn't always happen because, you know, some of this is dependent on other calls that might be being held at a certain time. But we like to get our fire and rescue staff out of the station into the community and show up with the proper personnel. Because sometimes even when you get there, even something like directing traffic
Right.
around an incident can become really important.
Yes.
And you know, if we have the right people there to be able to do it, it's about the safety of our firefighters and the public and the people involved in the call.
Right.
And that's really a reason why we voluntarily send out a lot more infrastructure
Okay.
on a call maybe than some other counties do.
Very good. Well, Jeff, this has been wonderful. And love all your response and the response of the entire county to Green Spring. It's very nice to live here,
Yeah.
live among you, and just to enjoy the county in every aspect. Just before we leave, anything else you'd like to say that you haven't said?
The only thing I would say, Clint, is you know, we as a county really appreciate Green Spring for a lot of reasons. The community that is here is really a model for communities we need to set up like this around the county. I mean, actually, we need more Green Springs, and not literally, but we need more facilities that provide community for our seniors, and you see that here more than anywhere else. And then all that Green Spring does in the community outside of Green Spring is amazing. You know, the volunteerism, the folks who are here. There's never a time when I come in here I don't meet a new fascinating person with a fascinating life story that we can all learn from. So we're very grateful to Green Spring, to the residents here. We're also very grateful that as an employer, Green Spring also hires a lot of people who have special needs to work here on the campus. They really take philanthropy very seriously, and we love that and are really appreciative of that.
Very good. Again, glad to have you with us. Congratulations
Thank you.
in your new position, and we look forward to a lot of great things throughout the county, and especially things here at Green Spring.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.